for this wonderful special gala event to celebrate Australian poets and poetry as part of Poetry Month 2022. Best month of the year! Of course, it's presented by Red Room Poetry, and tonight we're going to hear poems from some of our leading poets, actors, comedians and musicians. Now, my name is Alex Lee and I'll be the MC for this evening. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to all First Nations elders and custodians, past, present and future. And now I'm very happy to bring up Michael West from the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council for a Welcome to Country.
Bajari Gamaroo, everyone. G'day in the local Sydney language here. How's everyone? Good, excellent. Thinking about the last few years, we have been through a difficult situation. We're still part of the way going through that, the pandemic, when you think about it. We've pulled together, we've shown people dignity, respect. We've done pretty good up until December, but I think from January on it's been a little bit questionable. We've still got a ways to go, and I think following the rules is important. Where I live out at Western Suburbs, we had curfew, and I could tell, and I was talking to my neighbours, you could tell it was 8 o'clock because you could hear the helicopter. That's true. Until no matter what time you woke up, you could still hear a helicopter in the distance. So I think on reflection that it was worth it keeping more Australians alive and more people. So there are more grandparents, more parents, more siblings and more jarjums and that, keeping them alive when you think about it. And where we are here obviously is a pretty important place. This is where it all started to change for Aboriginal people, just out in the harbour there when you think about it, and in the Botany Bay and that. And we're on a journey, I think, and one big journey, aren't we? And what's that called? Life. Yes, we're on a journey of life. And traditionally out here, you would normally see a little canoes that were called nawis, and you might see a little fire in there too, and you'd see fishing and that. And when you get a chance, when you're over at the Opera House, make sure you look up on the grass up there, because there's bara, which is a fish hook. That is traditionally a Gadigal woman's fish hook made from a shell, and you'll see the shape and everything. So wherever you walk around in Australia, there's culture in the Torres Strait that's been here for tens of thousands of years, many millennia. Aboriginal people have been here since the beginning of time, we believe, until the end of time. I've talked to many different Aboriginal people. I've never heard anyone say that they've got migration stories from Africa. So we need a bit of a laugh these days too, don't we? We're living through very insane times, and I remember when we had a former president in America, I'd wake up every morning and say, we're still here. And hopefully the raids that are happening over there will maybe make a difference for the future, so we're not as scared when we think about it. And if you're in that canoe in the Nawi and you're out on the water and you're heading the other side of the coat hanger, what country is that? Camaragal, yes. And what is next to Gadigal here where we are? Starts with W. Wongal, yes. And over next to Camaragal, heading inland, on the other side, starts with W. Wallamadigal, and that's where Bennelong rests, over at Rideway. And if you keep going, you actually hit Parramatta, Barramadigal. And Barra meaning eel. And there's a wonderful place out there, a little island that the Land Council's getting back. It's just when you're going over to Camaragal, it's on the left there, and it's called Meemel, which is the eye of the eel. So Meemel represents that eel. It's with eye, so they're still there, and it's a whole creation story about Sydney Harbour and the waterways. And it's also a place where those clans and other Sydney clans met. So it's a very important place. And we also need to take a moment to pay our respects to country, because when you think about it, Mother has been speaking to us the last couple of decades, and she's actually speaking louder the last few years with the firestorms and currently the floodings that are going on. Everything around us, when you think about it, comes from our mother, and we need to respect her, and we all eventually become part of her and return to her, don't we? So we need to respect that. And we need to pay respects to country. We need to pay respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander traditional owners, elders and custodians of the past, present and future, but also pay respects to your ancestors. It's so important, as I said, we all become ancestors one day. And also pay respects, I think, for the last few years. We've lost many people from around the world from the pandemic, which is, I don't think is a 1 in 100 year thing now. It might be a bit different in moving forward in the future. But we need to be good global citizens and vaccinate everyone in the world. Otherwise it'll keep coming back and biting us, won't it? Yes. So if we just have a moment of reflection of our journey and pay respects to elders, ancestors and the country. Thanks. We have these 3 beautiful waterways. We have the Hawkesbury, Nepean and Georges. These are the aquatic boundaries of the Eora Nation. To my Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander brothers and sisters out there, we warmly welcome you from the country, the clan, the tribe and the nation you come from. And to all our brothers and sisters, we belong to that one mob, one tribe humanity. We warmly welcome you from the community, the neighbourhood, the family and ultimately the country you come from. We share a little blue marble in the cosmos. So on behalf of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, our elders, our members and our board, we welcome you here tonight. Enjoy the readings and the music, no doubt. And when you think about it, art has a very important place in society, and especially over the last few years. We've needed it for our resilience, for our self-care, whether you're binge-watching TV series or whether you're writing or whether you're playing music at home or whatever you're doing, we need the arts. And when you think about it, arts are one of the things that the dictators and despots do attack, because they know artists can make fun and can get people to think about ideas and to change things in emotion. So art is about ideas, emotion and coming together. So always was, always will be Aboriginal land, never ceded. Good leadership is about bringing people and taking them with you in a vision. Questionable leadership is about being divisive, and I think the last few years we've seen some good leadership, predominantly from women. And we've seen, I'm not just saying that because there's a lot of women here, I'm just saying that because it's true. Have a think about this. We've seen some really dodgy leadership, and they've all been people and males, and they've all had bad attitudes and bad haircuts, one might say. I'll let you have a think about the 3 that I'm thinking about. We all need to laugh, keep up the laughing, and let's all work together and walk together for a better future, because we can show the world what we do when we respect diversity and bring everyone together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm sure we all feel so welcome now. Well, we have just a wonderful night ahead of us. I'm so excited to be here. I'm not a poet, but poetry's always been such a big part of my life. I used to write poems when I was quite young, and some of them were pretty good, I got to tell you. There was one about a hermit crab in particular. I mean, I got a lot of attention for that. And I think what it really instilled in me from a young age was just this love and a real appreciation of attention, which is why I'm here today. I also did speech lessons as a kid. Did anyone do speech lessons? Yeah. Speech and drama kids here. It means I had to compete in poetry as Stedfords. And I think every speech and drama teacher in the early 90s had one book that all the poems came from. And it was called A Cup of Giggles and a Saucer of Dreams. Yeah, and I can still see the cover in my head. It was this cup with like this horrible face on it being like, eh! And there was this baby sleeping on a saucer. It was nightmare stuff. And, Sorry, I should check. Is anyone here tonight doing a reading from A Cup of Giggles and a Saucer of Dreams? Oh, no. Oh, Curly is. I'm in trouble. I take it all back. But yeah, it wasn't for me. I thought it was like baby stuff, and I was like, I'm going to do some real shit. So I remember I was little, I'd go to the library, I'd, get out these old poems about war and drought, and I'd, rock up to these Eisteddfods, and the other kids would be like, I wish I had a sister to let me brush my hair, but all I've got's a brother. It really isn't fair. That stuff, and I'd come up and be like, under the pall of drifting smoke, in the dark of dawn they came, and the hidden death on their thin rope's brink, and the great gun talked in flame. And I won, of course. All that. I had gold, gold, gold constantly. And I don't know if that's because I gave the best performance or if they thought that the 7-year-old Chinese girl was possessed by the ghost of a World War I digger. I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know. So poetry's so dear to my heart, and I'm very happy to be here. So to kick us off tonight, we're going to hear from someone I'm sure many of you know, a poet, artist, and of course the director of Red Room Poetry. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tamaran Bennett.
Thanks, Alex and Uncle Michael. Very hard to follow those two. We are here on Gadigal land where languages have been lost, but their echoes remain and stay strong thanks to those warriors of culture and country, some of whom we'll hear from tonight. The lights are bright up here, but I do know there are some new faces and new people to poetry in the room, so please don't be scared. Poets are weird, they are strange. We spoke about that a little moment ago. But there is no right or wrong. There's just a field beyond, as Rumi wrote, and everybody is welcome and needed in that field. Your interpretations of the poems are absolutely valid. Poetry has no single definition. So before I start thanking everyone that makes these things possible, I'd love it if you could just turn to somebody beside you and share what you think poetry is or what it means to you. So judging by the sound, there's a lot of different definitions of poetry going on, and I'll let you debate them over a drink later, but none of them are wrong, is what I want to say. So Red Room Poetry exists to make poetry in meaningful ways, and we do that in collaboration with poets, communities, and people across this continent. And the aim is really to commission new works, create projects, and to share and celebrate as many voices, styles, and forms of poetry as is possible. So projects like Poetry Month engage hundreds of poets and pay them for their words, as well as supporting thousands of students to feel heard, to publish their first poems, hopefully not from that book, Alex, and to also literally grow a forest with us using their words. So for more than almost 20 years, Red Room Poetry has been creating projects like that. And we're now at this point where we're pushing the boundaries of what poetry is and can be. And for me, that's the most meaningful thing I can have done with my life in this little while that I get to work with Red Room Poetry. And Poetry Month is the pinnacle of that in a lot of ways, bringing poetry out from those shelves into the light to connect us in some of the ways that Uncle Michael was talking about, those clearer strands of language that make meaning between us. So thank you all for being a part of it and believing in our poetic bones. A special thank you also to Copyright Cultural Fund and Kim Williams that helped inspire tonight and support it. To our patron, John B. Fairfax, AO, to Oranges and Sardines Foundation and our founder, Joanna Featherstone, we wouldn't exist without you. Pantera Press Foundation, Rise, Restart and Investment Fund that have helped us create events like this across the continent, from Queensland to WA to Tasmania. You can find poetry everywhere. Look under your bed. Australia Council for the Arts, Create New South Wales, and many generous individuals in the room tonight that support those programs. Of course, the Red Room Poetry team behind the scenes and our board who are always encouraging. And most importantly, the poets and artists, ambassadors that you're about to meet that put their hearts on stages and pages and screens. Thank you for helping us lift this poetic kite into the sky and mingling your atoms in this space with us.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Tamaran. Well, we have a really special treat tonight. Throughout the evening, we're going to hear songs from an immensely talented singer and songwriter who you're just about to meet. Ben Salter has released over 30 albums, both as a solo artist and as well as other projects. I know, I feel lazy. Including the Gin Club and the Wilson Pickers. He's going to kick us off right now, so please help me make welcome Ben Salter.
Hello, I'm Ben. I'm the musical component. I'm going to start with a song that's an adaptation of a poem by Herb Wharton, who's a Murray man from Western Queensland, and this is an adaptation of his poem, Tracks. Tracks upon the ground, tracks upon the sky, out upon the ocean. You sometimes see the tracks of ships. Since dawning of the dream time, greatest bushman in the world did not follow roads or maps. Always they looked down to read and follow track. No history books did they read. Land told all to people. History, it was written on the land. The reading told in track. As dream time began, rainbow snakes slide round and round. Across the land it slid, flicked its tail. Rocks piled up, hollows where it rested, waters where it sleeps. Legends from the dream time, the story told in tracks. Embedded in the rock, tracks a million years old. Men of science now read a message in these tracks. A bushman's life I've led, always following track. A cold, clear, wintry morning, tracking straying horses down, pausing for a moment, looking up into the sky, 30,000 feet above my head. A clear white vapor trail across the sky. Of my sway, I track satellite from horizon to horizon. Men of science now leave their tracks in the sky, even on the moon. Man has left his track. Outward into space. Among the planets, space probes travel, tracked upon a screen. Australia's dreamtime history is not written in a book. Upon the earth it's written, the story told in tracks.
Man, Salter, how good was that? Man, they know what they're doing at the Australian Chamber Orchestra, don't they? That sounded incredible. Well, I'm going to read a poem now. This one is a very special one by Sydney poet Elin Chong, and it's called Mid-Autumn Mooncakes. It's in a long tradition of poems that have been written about the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is a time to come together with family, and as with Elin's poem, it evokes a strong sense of nostalgia for people who can't be with their family at the time. And we're about a month out from the Mid-Autumn Festival. That's in September, but I thought, there's a supermoon basically tonight, so it's more than appropriate. So Mid-Autumn Mooncakes by Elin Chong. It's nearly mid-autumn. I spy the tins at the Asian grocers, gaudy red peonies, unchanged for 40 years. Of course, I buy the mooncakes with the double yolks. Here in Australia, yolk or no yolk, they cost the same. I should wait for you. Wait for the full moon, light some lanterns and try to make out the lunar rabbit, the Chinese fairy, but I don't. I cut the mooncake into quarters and spoon out the deep orange yolks, leaving half-round cavities in the sweet lotus paste. Eaten on their own, the yolks are creamy, almost too salty. A continent away, I imagine my mother in her kitchen, slicing through shell and briny white. I remember my father scraping the duck eggs into rice porridge. They always saved me the yolks. My bowl, a cradle of bright congee, full of the gold of the mid-autumn moon. You can really taste those salted egg yolks in your mouth, can't you? I'm sorry if anyone here hasn't had dinner. I just love this poem. I think so many of us have just such a strong sense memory related to food and childhood. For me, it was very similar. It was getting a steaming hot bowl of congee and cracking an egg straight into it and stirring it with your chopsticks and watching it slowly cook like magic in front of you. And she mentioned the lunar rabbit, which is in sort of Chinese and other traditions where you can actually see the little rabbit who lives in the moon. And it brings such a strong memory back for me of at my papa's house. She had a pantry which was full of good stuff like green cordial and chips, and also these white rabbit lollies, which are amazing, very sweet. And they would be wrapped in the rice paper, and we were allowed to go and get one and unwrap it, and you could eat the little rice paper around it, which didn't taste good, but you ate it because you could, and that was awesome. And I also loved Elin's description of the Asian grocer, because for me, and I'm sure it is like this for many other people, It's a real sort of symbol of sort of home and knowing that you're going to be okay. I recently moved to the Gold Coast. Not a lot of Asian grocers there, or Asian people. And, you know, I was like, I'm not really sure if this place is going to be for me, but we found a place, and across the road on the Gold Coast Highway, there was this huge exotic Asian grocer, and just finding it there was just like, okay, we're going to be okay. I know everyone here looks like Chris Hemsworth, but we're going to be fine. You know, and I think that it's sort of like a beacon for the people, Asian people living around the world, you know, whatever else is going on, wherever you are, you know, you're going to find the correct brand of soy sauce, and that's really important. Well, we're going to hear from a real poet now. Eunice Andrada is a poet, educator and organiser. Her first poetry collection, Flood Damages, won the Anne Elder Award, and her second poetry collection, Take Care, was a finalist for the Stella Prize, Kenneth Slessor Prize and the New South Wales Premier's Multicultural Award. Please welcome Eunice.
We did not see the perfect yolks spill from the river into the straits. Leftovers from building their churches of limestone and egg whites. How the thousands of golden pupils must have stared back. Or the oil that flooded the mangroves and changed the harvest forever. Hair trimmings from salon floors across the islands, swept up and sent in cargo loads, black soaking in the black. Perhaps it was a blessing not to see the image of women drifting face down, their hair undulating soft pollutants. Still, the fruit from Guimaras bloats with putrid nectar. If you held the land inside you, you would become the land, and just as sick. Fruit bats fly to the forests of Antique. The weavers fly to Hong Kong. The last binukot dies. This is where we observe who comes to take and who leaves alive. From our monument of rain trapped in coralline, we watch the boats sever the water, release the cruelty it cannot hold. The Yield, after Sonia Feldman. When I read there were 170 women seized from brothels in the Gardenia district, loaded into police wagons and crammed into the hull of a ship, I wonder if they held hands or prayed, if they cried when their lurching cage docked, and when next morning they were forced to till the dizzying fields. I wonder how they felt when told it was a waste for pleasure to bear no fruit, how they must instead keep the earth fertile with their hands. I wonder about the small protests, if they slashed open the mouths of green coconuts to drink in the juice in croaking afternoons, if, while wrenching cassava from the dirt, they spat jokes about the men who must be asking for them, if they sang ballads under their breath while they worked, if they made love to each other and did not wait for the yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Eunice. That was beautiful. Our next speaker is a highly respected First Nations journalist, radio broadcaster, writer, and sound artist. And you can hear him presenting The Art Show on Radio National. And he's also the editor of Indigenous Radio with the ABC. He was also dressed spectacularly this evening. Please welcome Daniel Browning.
This is a poem dedicated to all the women who made me. Phalanx, woman's work. They talk of black matriarchy. I feel it every day. The only black matriarchs I know would refuse that title with an explosive cackle. It speaks nothing of the daily sacrifice, of the undying capacity for love, the smoothed creases, the made bed, tight as a drum, and the pathological worries, however they wrapped it. Nana means sister. She is the head of the phalanx of black women who made everything. And what they didn't manufacture with their own vascular hands, they could fix. No man needed. They disappear anyway. Grandma could reel in 4 and 5 at a time, perched on the seawall on the Tweed River, every day except for Sunday. Black brim was her specialty, enough to feed a black army. They'd hear her speaking lingo from the next room, but never invited in. Do you know what it is to live with fear as constant as breathing? Nanam feared God. It gave rhythm and melody to her life. She couldn't read or write, but she knew the good book, verse and chapter. A pillar of the church, she held everything up, even the broken notes as she strained to sing. Granny Hannah didn't have a tribal name, no totem either. We think of paucity, what they didn't pass on, when we owe them the air that we breathe. Granny grew up on Stradbroke, destined to be farmed out as domestic help. But you can't train an incandescent spirit laced with steel, wrapped in an iron will. They say Granny birthed most of the gurries around here. Well, they used to say that anyway. Anytime, day or night, the call would come, she'd hitch up that horse and buggy, and soon she'd be flying. Out of Hannah's Hill, a sand dune near South Golden, faster than a king parrot. A chipped blue tea service, Animag Iselin remembered, the gift of her employer. A big pastoral station out west somewhere. A clay pipe. Expert horsewoman. Or am I misremembering? And her basket weaving. In blood quantum terms, Granny Allison was full. Her self-loathing country doesn't know itself, always flattening the past to raise shining hollow monuments to the present that will be obsolescent in a decade. Like Pop, Granny didn't like to have her photograph taken. No one could steal her light like her thumbprints. But if I could just see her, I could well imagine what really fires the synapses in my brain. The sheer, undiluted power of a black woman standing alone, only moved by the restless jarjum churning in her belly. A woman's work is done. My second poem is Learning Bunjalang on Darawal by Evelyn Araluan, and I have her permission to read this poem tonight. Above his desk it is written, I wish I knew the names of all the birds. I know this room through tessellation of leaf and branch, Waranbil and Jarangir, in the shade of a kulsetsi, Cherokee, honey locust, a flowering tree. I am relearning these hills and salt waters and all the places wrapped around this room. We both have Dagaral here, lovers, fathers, friends, conquerors, ghosts. But here, in this new and ancient place, I ask him to name the song that swoops through this mosaic. Sometimes it is Wattlebird, sometimes it is Currawong. When we drive, he tells me King Parrot, Fairy Wren, Black Cockatoo. And I know Jalwan and Bilin and Garir, but the rest are just Nyangabil, the rest are just bird. It is hard to unlearn a language, to unspeak the empire, to teach my voice to rise and fall like landscape, a topographic intonation. So in this place, the shape of my place, I'm trying to sing like hill and salt water, to use old words from an old country that I have never walked on. Manjalang, Jagan Nai, Nandawal, Nuyaya. And God, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But I watch the bark twist, grey and slate and vanilla and vermilion. He tells me this is ribbon gum. So I find 5 words for this bark, and I promise I will learn them all. Because to hold him is to hold the tree that holds these birds I cannot name. And a word spoken here might almost sound like home. We are relearning this place through poetry. I open my book and say, Wayan. Here is a word which means road, but also root. And in it, I am rooted, earthed, singing between 2 lands. I learn that Balan is both river and Milky Way, and that he is Baragir, the youngest child, and the top of the tree. Where the Gar will come to rest, to call its own name across the canopy, long after his word for it is gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Our next speaker is the author of 2 poetry collections, These Wild Houses and The Lost Arabs, which won the 2020 Prime Minister's Literary Award for Poetry. I'm told that is very impressive. His debut novel is called Son of Sin. Please join me in welcoming Omar Saka.
Assalamu alaikum. Or g'day if you prefer. Well, you shouldn't, but it's all right. Thank you, one person. I'm going to read 2 poems. And the first is called Diary of a Non-Essential Worker. Did you know violins can shake the earth? Such sweet vessels, tiny planetary throats. I was sent an orchestra. They made music, a sorrow, a soaring that shivered the dirt. I followed the notes to a barbarism. The composer said he created the beautiful hour as a space to think about war. And I heard my mother's name, a dark cascade of her. I saw again the clamor behind her manner, her harrowed glamour. I am claiming all of it now, not as a violence, but as an inevitability, always justifiable. I guess I don't want to lose her, no matter the bruises. I haven't seen her in weeks, a memory of cherries, a perishable delight. I stay home, she stays home. And with this distance, we become old battlefields, able to appreciate our damages without adding to them. How lucky we are to have homes. How likely it is we will lose them. Months ago, we couldn't breathe, and smoky miracles pulverized the sky, our fussy lungs. Everything is a miracle when you are alive. I am learning that against my will. Today, I was sent a pink dwarf kingfisher, a bird thought extinct for over a century, and still it was someone's job to look for her. Someone waited, camera in hand, for a glimpse of a glorious beak. Outside, I hear the camaraderie of ordinary wings, the chatter of birds we call pests. They don't seem to mind the lockdown. I dare say they're having fun. A lark. I call my landlord, ask for a reprieve, and hear only birdsong. He's having fun. I walk out into the park where, months prior, a man was stabbed near to death. I sit on the bench close to the stain his blood left and receive a text reminding me to care about Kashmir and Gaza and our Uyghur brothers and sisters who I never stopped caring about and for whom my care did nothing. Forgive me, I sometimes mistake grief for care. The orchestra follows me under the foliage, the violins unrelenting, the world shaken to their curvature, their high-strung demands as I sift through the scattered lyric of my shattered life to find a way to love a woman, and the birds weave and whirl in the green, laughing at this non-essential work. The second poem I wrote after watching a movie called The Report, which stars Adam Driver, if you haven't seen it. I am watching beautiful people electrocute a man short-shackled to the floor. Farmers call it hog-tying. Language, I'm told, is built to choose sides. What is meant? The tool we believe connects us, maintains the divide. What I hear, be careful of silence, what it holds, how a word can take over your life. I call my love tamale sometimes because I want to eat her and to place her in my mouth outside a language either of us knows. She says I smell like apricots in my sleep. I harvest them as I dream. This has nothing to do with Adam Driver's The Report, nor the fact that years were needed to discover torture doesn't work. Here we need to know what work is or means and why it is the condition upon which any evil can be condoned. Everyone I know loathes their work, even the poets. Sometimes we confuse work for the world and our actions for changing it. It might have always been this monstrous. I go to bed thinking of terrorists and apricots, and in the morning my love reports what fruit I hold has gone to rot.
We should have had themed food after this tonight, so we could all have eggs and lotus paste and apricots. That would have been good. Thank you, Omar. We are now going to hear from one of our nation's most beloved actors, seen in TV, theatre and film. You know her from The Letdown, from Secret City and Sando and lots more. Please join me in welcoming Sasha Haller.
That was a really mean thing to do, Omar. I mean, how the fuck am I supposed to follow that? First up, right? I'm not a poet. I love poets. I love writing. I love performing. I've worked in the Opera House. I've worked across the road. I like seeing you guys out there. I can see you. I like being in your television, and I like being in your films, and I like communicating with you. That's what I do. But sometimes I need someone else to write the words for me. I mean, I'm smart. And I'm funny, and I'm like really cute and really fucking great at what I do, but other people need to write the scripts. I'm assuming, and if you don't know, write this down, I'll spell her name, Geordie Albiston. Jordie-Albiston. Have you got it? Good. Because she died, and one of the things that her family says was she lacked a proper appreciation of her own work. Well, that sucks. So it's on you to read her work and love it for her because she's gone. Her piece is called, and it's a directive. That's why it's good for me, because it tells me to tell you to do something. Things to Do, Heart, by Geordie Albiston. A, find heart and place hand upon it. B, time to metronome beat. C, empty above of all things earthly. D, fill with compassion. E, sleep. F, remove heart while comatose. And G, wrap in secondary skin. H, attend to uncontrolled weeping. I, inject with childhood whims. J, apply usual pressures. K, induce another few beats. L, install restraints against sudden death, flights of fancy, and similar feats. M, dream, the dream of green things rising through the cracks in the heart's veneer. N, stir slightly. O, open one valve. P, put back to sleep again. Q, attach block and tackle for possible messy escape. R, invite intelligence in. S, stitch up anything that gapes. T, arrange worldly affairs in good order, alphabetically, and from 1 to 10. U, inform media of intentions. V, alert next of kin. W, insert telegraph pole for long distance out of town friends. X, put heart back in. Y, press all systems go. Z, let your black ravens sing. All of you wonderful readers and people of the arts, I need you. And forgive me if I cry. The glorious director Shirley Barrett died a week ago. Sorry that I'm talking about death and women and art, but that's right, it's happening. Shirley Barrett, do I need to spell it? Do I? Good. Shirley Barrett won the Camera d'Or for her extraordinary film, Love Serenade. Yes, go and watch it, you can find it. Then we made a crazy film that nobody ever saw called Walk the Talk. And then I worked with her on Love Serenade, and I had to say the word cunt on television. You've got to get permission, especially if it's going to be on 9 or 10 or ABC. And it depends what time it's going to be aired. Like, someone has to check. And Shirley would always say, are you going to say it? And I'd say, well, it's written. I'm the actress. Of course I'm going to say it. And she said, all right, let's do one with it and one without. We'll see what the broadcasters think. And I say, all right, Shirley. She's an extraordinary filmmaker. She made a lot of television. She was on Countdown as a singer. Yeah, that's true. She leaves behind her extraordinary husband, Chris, and her adult children, Sabrina and Emmeline. And some of you have read this piece from The Guardian, and it breaks my heart. Lychees are my favourite fruit. They have a very short season in January and February, and Chris brought up a big bag of them, and I put them in the fridge because they're delicious chilled. So I was standing in the kitchen bench peeling away a lychee, and it suddenly occurred to me that this is my last lychee season, and next year I won't be around to enjoy them. My reaction to this was not particularly dramatic or profound. I just kept peeling away. I do think about it a bit, though, not with any sense of overwhelming grief. when I was still well enough to take our little pooch on his morning walks, enjoying the beautiful purple displays, I thought to myself, well, this is probably my last jacaranda season. But possibly I was secretly entertaining the thought that there might just be one more. But now the lychees have made it very clear, last lychees, lady, enjoy. At Christmas, I said to my mother, well, it just doesn't matter if I don't finish my novel. And she said, well, it matters to me. So I finished my novel. And I sent it to my agent, Grace, hinting that they, might need to hurry up, because if it was any way a goer, I needed to know. Yeah, I'll read it straight away, she responded. That was a couple of weeks ago now. And for the anxious author, this is very concerning. Okay, it is 100,000 words, but she has a literary agency to run. Also, I imagine that there are other authors, making their pesky demands of her. But if she gets and sets herself a daily task of, it's hardly a task. I mean, surely it would be a pleasure to be reading my work, of, say, 10,000 words a day, she could romp through it, the whole thing, in 10 days. I suppose we must give her off the weekend, but although really, well, it's not that bad, I say to Chris, or is it? I imagine various scenarios in my head. She keeps sighing and putting it down out of boredom, and after a while and a bit of prodding from her colleagues, she picks it up again, and then a phone rings, so she puts it down and she forgets about it, and finally she tells the work experience girl to read it and then write up, like a potted review. Unfortunately for me, the work experience girl has done a course in some radical new guard of literature, and my novel seems very tired and old-fashioned to her, and all this she tells Grace, and then Grace sighs, how do you tell your dying client that her last work, years spent labouring over, high on steroids, it'll never be published? I'm very gracious about it, and then I promptly die. Grace must live with this guilt for the rest of her life. She gets counselling. All of this, of course, is in my head, and of course, none of it is in the slightest bit fair to my brilliant and beloved agent, Grace.
Arthrosil. Spinning wheel, it's gone and now there's no going back. Stats. A simp stuffed into a gimp suit. A native user down the local boozer.
That blue screen is actually for later. We're going to be doing some special effects, making some movie magic. So get ready for that. Thank you, Ben. Our next speaker is a cross-disciplinary artist whose practice incorporates ceramics, poetry, and spoken word, performance, video, drawing, and photography. I'm hoping all at once. Her latest collection, F Words, was released last year. Let's hope we hear a few of them tonight. Please welcome Jackie Malens.
I think adjusting the mic is about as multidisciplinary as I'm going to manage this evening. Thank you, Alex. I think this job gets tougher for everybody who gets up tonight. What an amazing evening so far. I chose a couple of poems to share tonight that I guess tap into my sense of wonder, because with the kind of challenges we're facing, it's something that can be hard to stay connected to sometimes. Possibly a little hint of foreboding has still snuck through, but first of all, Fog Dam. Old people would tell me this is a mere after-image, but the first good wet in years and profligate tropical abundance floods me. The mud is rich and dark, water glass. Under the sun, lotus lilies float their burdens of petals and pollen. Ibis and heron unfurl bright in the shallows. I turn to each splash, glimpse flash of kingfisher with squirming sliver, flagellate whistle of kites descants above sticky insect hum. A dragonfly thrums the tip of every twig. Great egret croaks a protest, wet feet dragging as it labours away from my disturbance. Past the freshwater mangroves, paperbarks, shed skin, and figs dangle tangled rootlet tresses. Bee-eaters snap at motes of light, and motile shadows are shining flycatchers' obsidian glint. I glance up to meet ringed eyes of a boobook resettling its feathered self. A golden snake pours sunlit mercury through burnished leaf litter. Even in the monsoon forest's soothing gloom, vivid existence dazzles, Submerged in this urgent here and now, there is no visible horizon. I can't see what is ahead, what is coming. If you are reading this, I may be dead or alive, and you have survived past infancy, a life form holding your place in the flow of time through your body's growth, decay, autophagia in continuous asynchronous loops, sprouting and shedding in mere days the lining of the guts that stoke your fire, the rosy surface of your cervix, if you have one, the alveoli budding in your lungs. If you were reading this, I may be dead or alive, and every month you must be relinquishing and recoating your eroding skin and endometrium, if you have one, draining and replenishing every 3 your blood in its tree of vessels. Cell by cell, in a year or so, your liver lives and dies. In 8, fresh fat reupholsters flesh, and in twice that span, your bony frame depletes and resurrects. If you live for 80 years or more, whatever wisdom you have earned, your brain will be more or less the same grey matter that was cradled in your yielding skull at birth. You will hold in old ovaries, if you have them, all the oocytes not germinated, menstruated, given away, and your august heart, unless you are one of many modern miracles, will be half the original muscled organ, half of it grown new. However long your life, unless you are one of many modern miracles, the laminated lenses you focus on this site contain the same crystalline slivers at their centre that you first flexed to focus in the light. Thank you.
Wow, we've got math and stats from Ben. We've got some physiology from Jackie. It's educational. We've got it all. Well, our next speaker is a comedian, TV writer and actor. You would have seen her on Tonight with Tom Ballard, Australia Talks and the Angus Project, and she co-created the upcoming SBS web series Latecomers. She's a 2022 Poetry Ambassador. Please welcome Ninayama.
Oh my God, that person sounds really cool. Living up to that hype, okay. Hi, my name's Nina. I'm the lesbian version of Alex Lee. Yeah, it's cool. I feel like we used to get mixed up like a little bit, and I always used to be like make a joke out of it, being like, well, have you seen me and Alex Lee in the room at the same time? But now you have. So we're different. Anyway. Yeah, if you guys were like wondering when the insufferable millennial portion of the night is, she's here, baby. I have to say that because these poems are not saying anything really serious. And I was very intimidated by everyone. So, yeah, okay. This is my book that I wrote. I'm kidding. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just very insecure because I'm a comedy writer and I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to read 2 poems. One of them is by me, and I'm doing that one second. Wow, could I have been more confusing? This first one, don't laugh. It encourages me. Actually, no, do laugh because I need it. This first one is by Andrew Sutherland. It's called Human Sacrifice Made Sexy. I didn't ask him for permission to do it, but my housemates are friends with him, and they were like, he'd love it. So I think it's okay. All right. Sometimes I think if I were an Aztec, I'd be just handsome enough to have my heart cut out. And in the British Middle Ages, I'd be androgynous enough to burn as a witch. Today, if someone super attractive asked me to peel my own face off, I would absolutely do it. I commit a murder every time I make eye contact. If I'd been Helen, all the ships would have sunk. Alexander, they're pretty good. Alexander, just fine. Marie Antoinette, better minus the head. Keep the guillotine going, but save me for the foot fetishes. Sometimes I suspect that not even the bots that follow me on Instagram think I'm good looking. I scroll through group on tips on how to die. End of poem. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. I've been spending like the last half hour like calculating how many sips I can have of a beer until I will need to pee. I hope this explains any questions you may have about my behavior. Okay, this is my poem now. Guys, writing poems is really hard, so I'm sorry if it's bad. This poem is called It Makes You Stronger. A guy once showed me around a share house, and whenever he showed me a bad part, he said, "But hey, it makes you stronger." So the sink pipes are rotten, but hey, makes you stronger. There's a leak in the ceiling, but hey, makes you stronger. This is our ornamental Yayoi Kusama inspired wallpaper. Just kidding, it's mold. But hey, makes you stronger. I am showing my inner child around the cabin on the ship of Theseus. That's a cute nickname I have for my carefully curated, ever-changing personality. Thank you for the snap. Constantly under renovation, I refuse to throw out the broken bits. I hoard anything and everything that causes me any pain ever. It's a daily reminder to never get too happy. It's actually self-care to self-hate. I show my inner child the rapidly growing pile of mind garbage. Look, Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom. She doesn't laugh. Okay, I am going to deal with it soon. It's just that I'm like really busy with work and stuff right now. Like, I'm actually adding a Guy Fieri buffet to the ship of Theseus. Like, I'm adding a big-ass water slide to the ship of Theseus. I'm also performing a poem that uses the phrase ship of Theseus as if I didn't just Google modern philosophical terms that will endear yourself to poets 5 minutes ago on the ship of Theseus. I am crashing into an iceberg and all I feel is relief. I'm in an Oedipal relationship with my inner child, and when I grow up, I'm gonna fuck me and then kill myself. But right now, I'm still floating down the river in a basket, and the wicker is disintegrating and the water is pouring in, but hey, makes you stronger. Thank you.
I tell everyone I'm straight Ninayama, so it works out. Well, our next speaker is a Western Australia-based poet who this year released their first full-length poetry clean, which just explores addiction and recovery. They are also the 2022 Red Room Poetry Fellow. Please welcome Scott Patrick Mitchell.
Why did I have to follow the comedian? Hi, how you going? I'd like to acknowledge that these poems are written on Wajak Noongar country. And just, I'm a Libra, so I got a little, party. So I brought light and shade. We're going to start with the shade first. Not like that kind of shade. So as a way of context, on June the 12th, 2016, 49 people lost their lives in a nightclub in Orlando, Florida. First responders on the scene told of how when they were tending to the deceased, all of their mobile phones began to ring at the same time. This poem is dedicated to the 49 victims of Pulse. What is the sound of a kiss between a man and a man if your worldview perverts you from seeing all the lonely people? Where do they all come from? Here, Eleanor Rigby is a drag queen. Beetles bump beneath skin as bones bounce in ecstasy, and Orlando is a woman who was once a man, who is now a woman again. In musical theater, it is perfectly the norm for men to dance a chorus line form. The same can happen in a nightclub. So come, seek sanctuary. After all, closets are for lions, witches, and wardrobes. But him, that one whose name now gives him power beyond the grave, and his legacy already stains rainbows, he's out to bang the cocked gun of being human and all the hate that can bring. Hot damn, a screaming orgasm, slippery nipple, sex on the beach, birthday cake, prairie oyster, rumple mince, an ice luge, gold clanger, Jägermeister, kamikaze, mind eraser, bombs, the three-toed sloth, Boilermaker, fireball, flaming Lamborghini, chartreuse, schnapps, absinthe, the sucking cowboy, and the licking cowgirl. These are the only shots that should be heard ringing out in a nightclub. What is the sound of their death and your living? 49 mobile phones ring out in unison. Thank you. Thank you. So, to celebrate the supermoon, this one is about Meliup, which means place of the rising moon. And it has refrains going through it that are the common names of West Australian bush orchids. Is there anyone here from Western Australia? Yes, yeah, one person. Well, two, me. So this is a love poem. Marry. The forest breathes us in. We are chasing bush orchids. Camberang is brimming through a macro lens. Petals bend, fill the screen. Blue, beard, duck. Your green dazzles, blonde hair curling around my heart. We laugh. The forest smiles with us. Donkey, elbow, leak. Beyond the breadth of this, ocean swims. Here is the place of the moon rising. The forest sighs, as do I. You smile wide, engulf tree and leaf and trunk, fire, slipper, sun. You say to me how love is like a wildflower, a moment that recurs again and again when the conditions are perfect, as in how they are between us now. In this instance, your kiss persists, travels through time, backward and forward. Fairy, helmet, hair. The forest knows that in 2 years from now, we shall give up this connection. How in 4 years' time, I shall write these lines, and our love shall exist once more for a moment. How sometimes a poem is just a memory, remembering hammer, rattle, babe in a cradle. And I want to believe that love lasts forever, but the conditions fall apart, like us. This is why we take photographs. This is why we write from the heart. This is why I dance with you now beneath the marry trees in the hope that one day you would marry me. The forest breathes us out. Thank you.
That was gorgeous, Scott. Thank you. Good. Our next speaker is a comedian and mental health advocate. You probably know him as Nat's What I Reckon, who rocketed into global prominence with his isolation cooking content. Now, both of Nat's books have been shortlisted in the Australian Book Industry Awards, and like Nina, Nat is also a 2022 Poetry Ambassador. Please join me in welcoming Nat.
Fucking hell, g'day. Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's like some metalhead snuck in here. How you going? Oh, fucking hell. Yes, being vulnerable is pretty fucking scary. All right, here we go. This poem was written by my mate Andy Dimitri, who works for MSF. I'm not sure if you're aware of what that is, but he's in a he's in a part of the world that's struggling a lot at the moment, and putting himself out there to care for people, as he has for me a lot of times, who's someone who's pretty fucked up and has a lot of anxiety issues, and a light on them and a microphone right now, that's not helping. But yeah, I've been a pretty teary, fucked up mess today, every day at the moment, and a lot of medical stuff scares the shit out of me, and having a mate like Andy around has been pretty incredible, and he's fucking saved my ass and a lot of people's ass, so I thought I'd give him a shout out and read his poem out tonight. All right, shut up, Nat, and read the poem. It's called It Will Make a Fine Hospital. I had overestimated the size of the square in the middle of the town by quite a lot. But it was still big, more than big enough for a hospital. 2 operating theatres, one of them in a truck, an emergency room, and maybe 80 beds. We'd have to take care of the cars, of course, overturned, burned and unruly here and there. We'd have to check it for mines, of course, although I'm pretty sure I saw children playing soccer here the other day. We'd have to fence it off, of course, or maybe a wall. It's so exposed, and we're only 10 kilometres from Mosul. And maybe block off a few roads, remove the chaotic tangle of down power lines, clean up the broken glass and the shattered remains of surrounding houses. The square certainly saw some fighting. But other than that, it will make a fine hospital. Love you, Andy. I think he's watching on a live stream somewhere at the moment. G'day, mate. Yes, I also do take the piss a lot. So here's a poem written by me, taking the piss. I'm sure that would have been clear in a moment, just reading it out, but whatever, here we go. I should probably mention that I like cracking the shit at stuff, particularly like stupid signs that say like annoying stuff telling you to do shit on the wall, usually engraved in wood at a cafe by the beach. So this one's called Good Vibes Only. I see you in the bar window, shining so bright, with a seeming list of demands for entry tonight. This super cool bar ain't for no phonies, with a sign out the front that says, Good Vibes Only. Those are the rules, and this is the law. I'd love a quiet drink, but I'm not so sure that my vibe is quite right for this fancy bar. I had a tough day. I even cried in my car. Maybe that will all change if I go inside. Or will I be found out by its watchful eye? Too bad, piss off, says the neon sign. You are not welcome here with your incorrect vibe. Go clean yourself up and bring back better. Something to match the clientele and other trendsetters. For this is a bar where no one is sad or lonely. This is a bar where we have good vibes only. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Nat. How are the vibes in here tonight? They all right? They're good? Well, our next speaker is an award-winning multidisciplinary artist and consultant advocating for marginalised communities and care for country. Curly was the New South Wales Aboriginal Woman of the Year in 2020. In 2022, she was awarded an Order of Australia Medal for her contribution to literature. Please welcome Curly Saunders.
Hi, everyone. I can't see all of your lovely faces unless I squint, and I'm really focusing on trying to not let my retainer fall out of my pocket, so I'm just going to focus on that instead. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight on Gadigal land, and I'm very grateful to be in the room with so many poets that I respect and admire, and people who are funny when I'm not usually, so thank you for bringing laughs and joy. I'm going to start off with a more serious poem, because I'm not a Libra, but I do bring light and shade. And so I'll start with that one first, and it does explore the intersection between gender violence and climate violence. So big things, but I'm here with you, and there's people here with you who are in that also with love. So sending love to anybody if this hits home for you. This is Tidal. Oscillating between channels, we watch them victim blame La Nina and her trade winds which surge east, drawing cool water from the deep to surface Earth's heat. On screen, pollies are indiscreet with euphemism, casting climate change as hot flush, assault as allegation. We change the station, understanding that denial and gendered violence are everywhere. Here, they gaslight the sky, silence the cries and rain that flow heavy over mother, while another mum wades waters to rescue her own. Soon the torrent would subside, but nothing could hide the line of the tide from the moontime memory of a woman. On the news, they justify worth with relation, mistaken that for protection, a female needs a title. Nura responds with tidal overflow of her own. She takes up space, evacuates homes, raises dam walls, and closes the coast. Nura shows that she could never be too much, encouraging trust in the swell of rage that arrives in us as charges pressed, an en masse march, allies by survivors, a 100-year flood, when Nura says, enough is enough. The whole world stops to listen. And like her, our vision for justice will not go unheard. They cannot disregard the waves of change we make when we rise like water, mother, women, one. Thank you. Thanks. These poems are from a collection called Returning, which has been pushed back for next year, so it'll be out when it's out. And I wrote this poem before I wrote for Vogue, so apologies if anybody who knows that is here. Auntie Vogue, Auntie Elaine George, this was before you. They didn't have Auntie or Sister Girl on the cover of Vogue. Marie Claire and Vanity Fair fronted models with hair and skin lighter than mine, crisped in tanning tanks to acquire our melanin-dipped limbs, while denying the racism we faced behind the scenes. They had visible ribs, Botox lips, overnight nose jobs, and tummies who got sucked and then tucked as they aged. No stretch marks, no greys. Everything monetized to beautify, wax and peroxide to bleach and pluck, lipo and dieting to shuck and drain everything not beautiful away. Tide gone out. Skinny ankles meander through rocky outcrops, where young uncles teach nephews to pocket knife shuck delicate oysters for family. Full-breasted mums nurse chubby bubs on near-ripe pig face. Laced sand everywhere, juicy brown lips part for Earth's generous gifts, and chins meet sun.
Saltwater sustenance becomes human. Afternoon clouds blush at young ones who paint themselves with ochre. Sea sprays carry away their giggles. When it dries, they washed crackled patterns in shallow waves, and cream curdles billow, fogging nannies wade nearby with earthy art. She twists and sways, twists and sways, teaching her littles to dance for Bungajan, entranced. Everywhere they look, they see black is beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Curly. Well, we're nearly at the end of our evening tonight. We have one more speaker. She's a Prime Minister's Literary Award-winning writer, editor and critic, and a Professor of Creative Writing at QUT. She's the author of 3 books of poems, Aria, The Hazards and The Jaguar, and a book of essays, Fishing for Lightning. And she's presently the Judy Harris Writer-in-Residence at the Charles Perkins Centre. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Holland Bat.
Thank you. These poems take us somewhere quite intimate. My dad died a few years ago after 20 years of Parkinson's disease, and anyone who's been through that journey over that duration of time knows it's kind of a wild journey, and I think people think of Parkinson's often as having a tremor, and having difficulty walking. But Dad also went through some quite insane personality changes, including compulsive spending, and in one of those incidents, he bought himself, without seeing it, without inspecting it, after he'd surrendered his driver's licence, a vintage Jaguar car, on eBay. Yeah, he did have style. The Jaguar. It shone like an insect in the driveway, iridescent emerald, out-of-season Christmas beetle, metallic flecks in the paint like riverbed tailings, squeaking doe-skin seats. Bottle green, my father called it, or else forest. A Folly he bought without test driving, vintage 1980 XJ, a rebellion against his tremor. The sole bidder, he won the auction without trying, the day after the doctor told him to draw a line under his driving years. My mother didn't speak for weeks. It gleamed on the terracotta drive, wildcat forever lunging on the hood, predatory, the chrome snagging in the sun, ornament of my father's madness, miraculous and sleek. Until he started to tinker, painted the leather seats with acrylic so they peeled and cracked, jacked the gear stick, hacked a hole into the dash with a Stanley knife, jury-rigged the driver's seat so it sat so low you couldn't see over the dash. For months he drove it, even though my mother begged. He drove it as though he was punishing her, dangerously fast on the back roads, then opening up the engine on the highway, full throttle, even though he was going blind in one eye, even though my mother and I refused to get in. And for the first time in years, my father was happy. He was happy to be driving. He was happy my mother and I were miserable. Finally, his modifications killed it. The car he'd always wanted and waited so long to buy. And it sat like a carcass in the garage, like a headstone, like a coffin. But it's no symbol or metaphor. I can't make anything of it. And this final poem is called The Gift. In the garden, my father sits in his wheelchair, garlanded by summer hibiscus, like a saint in a 17th century cartouche. A flowering wreath buzzes around his head, passionate red. He holds the gift of death in his lap, small, oblong, wrapped in black. He has been waiting 17 years to open it and is impatient. When I ask how he is, my father cries. His crying comes as a visitation, the body squeezing tears from his ducts tenderly, as a nurse measuring drops of calamine from an amber bottle, as a teen at the car wash wringing a chamois of suds. It is a kind of miracle to see my father weeping this freely, weeping for what is owed him. How are you? I ask again, because his answer depends on an instant's microclimate. His moods bloom and retreat like an anemone as the cold currents whirl around him, crying 1 minute, sedate the next. But today my father is disconsolate. I'm having a bad day, he says, and tries again. I'm having a bad year. I'm having a bad decade. I hate myself for noticing his poetry, the triplet that should not be beautiful to my ear, but is. Day, year, decade, scale of awful economy. I want to give him his present, but it is not mine to give. We sit as if mother and son on Christmas Eve, waiting for midnight to tick over, anticipating the moment we can open his present together. First, my father holding it up to his ear and shaking it. Then me helping him peel back the paper, the weight of his death knocking. And once the box is unwrapped, it will be mine. I will carry the gift of his death endlessly. Every day I will know it opening in me. Thank you.
I just want to say what an immense honour and pleasure it is to be sharing stage with all these people I've only ever seen on television or read about or on the internet. It's just, it's mind-blowing for me, so thanks so much. And thanks so much to David and Red Rim Poetry for inviting me and putting this together. I'm really sorry for what's about to happen. I have one joke. This is a normal size recorder. I'm just really small. Never had a single lesson. Pluck the knife from the hands of the madman who'd come calling in the night from the wasteland. He'd come a lurching home, walking through the quicksand. She gave him rest when he was wearied with the burning heat, proffered water to his lips that tasted honey sweet, but all he does is moan. So she's hit the streets, and now you're dead meat. So here's my poem. A dead ass boxed my ears with his haunching bone. I got a taste for the outside world, and I left my home. As I lay dying for a vibe, well, the seed was sown. Here's my poem. Apply to me your bloody curcubits. Draw out the bile when the flame is lit with your mugwort wool and your ginger slab. Oh, I've got it back. It's doing me a sad. Here's my poem. A dead ass boxed my ears with his haunching bone. I got a taste for the underworld, and I left my home. Motherless child running round with a mobile phone. And the name of the person that wrote this is Ben Salter. I gave you something that you'd never heard before.
Oh, wow. Man, I saw that recorder when we walked in, that bloody big thing. It was like Chekhov's gun. I was like, when's this thing going up? And it did. It did. Thank you, Ben. Well, that brings us to the end of our evening. Please, let's start a round of applause for all our wonderful artists for sharing their poetry with us tonight. We had Eunice Andrada, Daniel Browning, Omar Saka, Sasha Haller, Jackie Malens, Ninayama, Scott Patrick Mitchell, and that's what I reckon, Curly Saunders and Sarah Holland Bat, and of course, Ben Salter. So good. Thank you, of course, to Red Room Poetry for organising this event and supporting this art form. Thanks to all the excellent staff here. And thank you, everyone here tonight, for joining us in this celebration. It's just been glorious. I've had a beautiful time with all of you people, so thank you so much for your support. Now, I'd like you to join us for drinks in the foyer now. Also, all the books from our artists tonight are available for sale, and I really recommend to you to buy one of each, at least. You know, there's a rainy weekend ahead, and I can't think of anything better for you to do than sort of curl up on the couch feeling very smug, just make a little nest out of poetry books and have a cup of tea, and you'll have a lovely time. Thanks so much. I've been Alex Lee. Good night.